Hey, everybody. It's Alanna and Milano. Thanks for joining us on Bare Naked Moms.
Hi. Today's show is personal. It is inspirational. It is a little bit painful. We have the honor of talking to Candace Hewit, who is a friend and an expert in something that she never imagined she would become an expert in, which is parenting through grief. 5 years ago, talking June 2020, her husband, Candace's husband, Rusty, went into the ER thinking he had COVID. And he didn't have COVID. He actually had acute leukemia, acute myeloid leukemia. And he died about 3 days later in the hospital, leaving Candace a widow to him and a single mom of three young children, ages 6, 4, and 2. What makes this show so personal is that Candace and I have been friends for 30 years, which is bonkers. We were roommates at boarding school together. We literally grew up together. We were in each other's weddings. My 3 children and her 3 children were born, within months of each other.
It's so rare and so precious.
It's really rare and precious. And it's crazy to see someone you know so well kind of like just be overtaken by, sort of hijacked and captured by grief, just to see how powerful grief's hold is on someone and a family. So anyways, she's remarkable and such a beautiful picture of resilience and strength.
Yeah. It's a heartbreaking story. It's an unimaginable story. How do you absorb this kind of trauma as an adult human yourself, and meantime wake up the next morning and keep 3 small humans alive at the same time? Candace really breaks down how she survived the early days. She talks about what the here and now looks like.
We hope you get so much good stuff from our conversation with Candace. And without further ado, here she is, Candace Hewit. So, let's dive right in.
Okay.
I think when people hear your story, I think they think after the, oh my gosh, and the shock and the, whatever, the sadness and the empathy and the compassion, they think, what would I do? Which is really so natural because you were us. You had 3 young children. You lived in the suburbs. You had a front yard and a backyard. You did carpools. So will you tell us and our listeners, what did you do?
You are in a dreamlike state in the beginning. Nothing feels real. It's numbing. It's isolating. And your whole world all of a sudden stops. And so I don't think you know what to do. You just sort of move through the motions of, okay, I have to get up. I have to feed my kids. I have to get gas in my car. I have to get, whatever it is, my kids to school or to camp or whatever it is that's on your daily schedule. And you move through the motions. For me, I was really fortunate to have a stream of people in the beginning coming in to my house. I had family, I had friends, this enormous support system that really got me through those initial days and months when it happened. But, after a while, that's just not sustainable in life, right? You have to find a way to really kind of figure out how you can get through your day to day. And it's really just going, for me, hour to hour, day to day. It was okay, what am I going to do this hour? This hour is going to feel differently than the next hour. Today's going to feel different than tomorrow. And it just is sort of this journey that you kind of float through until you feel like you're footing again, which takes a really, really long time.
How long did it take before you felt like that sense that not everything was okay, but like, okay, I feel my feet on the ground. I have my footing. I can see how this is going to go.
Yeah. Rusty died in June. It was before the last week of school. And we were in the middle of COVID. It was the world was in crisis. And then all of a sudden, my immediate world was in crisis. And we spent the summer months sort of in limbo, going back and forth between different states. And by the end of the summer, it was time for me to really like face reality, which was I have to go back to my home with my children. They need to start school, and I need to be a solo parent. I need to be the solo parent because it's going to happen eventually, right? I was lucky enough to have family and friends and go live with my parents for a while and get that support. But ultimately, I was the one that this was all going to fall on. 3 months of being in limbo. And then, once the kids started school, and actually only one of them started school because they were so young. But, if I really reflect back on it, I mean, it took years.
Yeah. Because when you went back to school, that was September of 2020. It was
September.
So back to school, you didn't even have school age. 2 of them weren't even in school age. And then
no, and
Grace.
She had just started 2nd grade. And then I really just shook things up and did what everyone says you shouldn't do, and decided to move. 3 months after Rusty died, I decided to move back to my hometown and be surrounded by my family. And so 6 months after Rusty died, I ended up selling my house and moving to a brand new house, putting my kids in brand new schools, starting life without him in a different state, but surrounded by the support system that I knew I needed to really like survive. And it was, people are so hesitant, or everyone's advice is to not do anything major. Don't make any major changes or any major decisions within the first year. Well, it's not your journey, right? Mm-hmm. It's the individual's journey. And so for me, making that move was the best thing that I could have done for myself and my children.
Was any part of the new location, you had your support system, all of that made so much sense, but was it harder to have to, because it was people who hadn't necessarily known exactly what happened to your husband? Mm-hmm. Did you find yourself having to have more explanation conversations? Or did your support system spread the word?
My support system spread the word. I mean, they knew the people that were, all of a sudden in my life that were this new community. They knew that I had lost my husband.
I'm wondering, as you say, in the immediate aftermath of Rusty's death, and you had to put one foot forward and then another foot, and you had to make meals and you had to figure out how they were eating, even if you weren't making the meals. And like, these kids were so anchoring in a way. I have to, think that as they needed you so desperately, I'm wondering, I guess, I don't know what I think. I'm wondering, was that focusing? And I think the answer is yes. Or, and maybe this is yes too, did it make it all the more unbearable?
I think it depended on the day, and really like because I knew I needed to be their mom and to show up for them. I made my first focus meet to find the help that I needed to be able to parent them alone.
like oxygen first for you.
Yes.
Oxygen mask.
I mean, one of the first things I did was
you.
call a therapist, literally within days after. And I said, I need help. I also need medication and I need help. And there's no shame in that. Now I have to help my kids. Now, what are our options? Well, we're in the middle of COVID and I have a 2-year-old. So anything on Zoom is really not going to work. There are grief groups out there for families that are an amazing resource, but that for us was not in the cards. And so I had to sort of broaden my horizon and ask the right people about, is there someone that can also help my children? And found, a therapist that was able to come over to our house during this time and also had a background in oncology, so understood cancer and children's grief. And then there were some days where it was just unbearable. I mean, I remember Jacqueline, my youngest, was 2 at the time, and I was holding a Starbucks coffee, and like coffee was what I lived on. And holding a coffee in one hand, I'm holding a coffee in the or her in the other hand. I'm trying to like get out of the house, and she hits my hand, so I lose my coffee. And it literally took me to my knees, crumpled in a fetal position, with her standing next to me crying, and I could not move for 45 minutes. I had to call someone to come help. So it's this.
Yeah.
It's both and.
It's both and.
It's
depending on the day. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If someone were listening to you right now who has just lost their spouse and the father or the mother of their children experienced exactly what you've experienced, what would be 3 things that you would tell them?
I can remember actually a widow friend of mine who lost her husband a couple of years before I did. And I went to see her. We went for a walk. And the first thing she said to me was, looked me straight in the eye. First thing out of her mouth was, your kids are going to be okay. Your kids are going to be okay. And I looked back at her and I was like, okay, and I believe that. The first thing I would say is, your kids are going to be okay. The second thing I would say is, this is your journey and this is your grief, and there is no one else's that is going to be similar. So you play by your own rules. And while so many people want to come in and help and give their advice and fix the situation, there is no fixing. And while it's appreciated, that help, you have to follow your gut and do what's right for you and your children. And in that process, there's no timeline to anything. It's really however you follow yourself, and you just have to make your own rules and do what's right for you and your kids.
In the same way that you moved when everyone said you shouldn't. Like that ended up being
it was more like, yeah, exactly. It was more like, well, don't make any decisions. Don't make any decisions. Don't make any decisions. Wait a year. Well, I couldn't wait a year. It was so uncomfortable for me to be in the situation. Not that it was bad. Because it wasn't. We had an amazing life. We had amazing friends. We had amazing community. We had family, but for me in that moment and for the rest of my life, I knew where I ultimately wanted to be. Going back to the 3 things. So it's like, your kids are going to be okay. You are on your own timeline. Be patient with yourself. Give yourself grace. And also, I think, just know, like, you can do hard things. Probably you can do hard things harder than you ever imagined. And you're going to get through it. I wrote a note to my kids before school started. I don't know what it was. I was like, oh, I'm just going to like throw a quote up. And I looked online for a good quote for kids, and it was a Winnie the Pooh quote that was, you're braver than you believe, stronger than you think, or stronger than you imagine, and smarter than you think. And I noticed it yesterday when I was kind of thinking through my thoughts for this. And I was like, that's it. Like, you are all of those things. You're smarter, you're stronger, and you're braver.
I know, but yes. And I believe in all that. And I think that, in order to find out, that there's going to be some real, like growing is really painful, that in order to find out just how brave and strong and smart you are, something is going to really have to push you to the limits. And that's, who wants to think about that? And it's like, well, that's great. I'm glad I'll be really strong and brave someday. Could I not? Could I skip that part?
Well,
like, I'm fine with my current level of bravery, intelligence.
Yeah.
and
I don't want to grow.
Like no growth. I'm super fine being stunted.
Candace, have you learned so much about kids? Because I imagine that they've all dealt with their grief differently. Have they?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, and just what you've learned about their capacity to heal?
Well, I think that my kids, when Rusty died, were 6, 4, and 2.
Little.
Very, very, very little. And my oldest remembers the most, not much. I don't think my second 2 remember a lot. But kids' grief is so different. It's like one minute they're throwing a fit or they're crying, and then the next they're playing. What I've learned about it is, as they get older, they become more aware of how their family is a little different than others. It's a lot different than others. They are different than other friends. But I think the most important thing for us to remember as adults is that for kids to be a role model in grief and to show grieving and not be afraid to show that sadness or anything else, anger, whatever it is, that grief, showing them that grief, and then also showing them like living fully. So grieving fully and living fully, and is probably the most important lesson or model that you can show.
Like just being vulnerable to them. Like, kids, mom's sad today.
Yeah. Say it all the time. I'm missing daddy.
Yeah.
I'm feeling really frustrated right now. And actually it's because I'm sad because I'm missing dad. I mean, it's all A to B to C to D. And I'm sorry that I'm being short with you. This is how I'm feeling. And I just kind of need a minute.
That's powerful, because I think so often kids are having these big feelings and they don't know why. I mean, this is an oversimplification, but they're melting down and they're starving, but in this case, like maybe it's a really hard day and it's hard for them to identify exactly why. And they're missing dad too.
Right.
And like, I've read so much about this, like the naming of emotions it really like takes it puts you in control of the emotion, and, like not like it goes away, but it's like, oh, like, I know what's happening. It makes you more intimate with yourself and more in control of.
It's not weak, it's powerful.
Exactly. It's like a superpower. And when you name these things, you take the power away from that and bring the power to yourself, if that makes any sense. And I just love this like seeming irony, but like between, vulnerability and strength, and, how you're saying like we model vulnerability. Like we live with vulnerability, or we live, I forget exactly the way you said it, but it was like we are vulnerable. Like we grieve fully and we live fully. And it's almost like it's a math equation, because if you don't grieve fully, you can't live fully. And if you are not in your vulnerability and one with it, then, it's like this, it's like a paradox, or like you think by being vulnerable that you are like distancing yourself from vulnerability, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in fact, you're like covering yourself. You're like more vulnerable because you're giving it the power, like what we were just talking about. Whereas like if you're like, hey, this is a hard thing for me and I'm really struggling, man, I'm vulnerable. All of a sudden, you're less vulnerable. It's like freaking magic, but not. It's actually pretty simple and straightforward, but really complicated for human beings. those creatures,
especially children.
Candace, you talk about, your support system.
Mm-hmm.
What were the most helpful thing? What was the most helpful love and support that you got from friends and family? Because I think people really struggle with how to be there for the people they love when they go through this kind of tragedy.
Yeah. I mean, you're facing hard, right? And no one wants to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing. And
did you find that some people like unimaginably didn't say anything just because they didn't know what to say?
Yes. But I also, over time, understood that.
Yeah.
I mean, it is.
I understand that.
I
understand that too. It wasn't for lack of feeling.
Not at all. I mean, not at all. It's just people don't know what to do. And there is no roadmap for this. There are no directions.
I know.
My grief compared to someone else's is totally different. So something that may feel good to me and may be comforting to me is the last thing that other person wants. So, and no one has the answer. It's really the griever has all the answers, but
doesn't even know that they have all the answers.
Exactly. Right. You really don't. So,
and also when someone says, what can I do for you? That's an impossible question too.
Because you're putting the weight on them.
You don't know. You don't know. But
okay. But in retrospect, what was helpful to you?
I will say, my kids were so young that I couldn't leave my house without like piling them all in and do, whatever. So just like little things that I'll never forget. It was like I had coffee dropped off in my door every morning, and by someone they just left it, and then like a Costco order would show up with paper towels and snacks and stuff, like, and then baskets of laundry. I'd come home and they'd be folded for me,
like little fairies, like
just
invisible
like little,
fairies,
little magical sprinkles would just happen. But I think everyone wants to fix, including me. When someone is hurting, when our children are hurting, when a friend is hurting, you want to give the advice. You want to make the suggestion. You want to fix that pain. And there's no fixing this pain. And I think the most important takeaway that someone, whoever's listening can take away from this is showing up and just being present and listening is the best thing that you can do. And in Milano, I don't know if you remember this, but I was still living in New Jersey at the time. I don't know where I was going. I was driving around. I was on the phone with you, and we were having a conversation. Obviously, it was probably about Rusty in some capacity or whatever was happening in that moment. And I pulled the car over, and I was sitting in the parking lot at a Wells Fargo. I'll never forget this. And I just lost it. And I was crying. All the emotions were coming. And you were on the other line, not saying a word. You were just on the phone with me. And when I calmed down, you were like, I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm still here. And that I will never forget that moment, because I wasn't alone in that. Try not to say anything. Just be there and listen. And, and then when there's a conversation, the question is so simple. It's like, how's your grief today? Like, how are you today? I have answered people and said, I'm really shitty. Right? I don't need to say anything more than that.
Yeah. How are you today?
How are you today?
Right. Not how are you?
Not how are you?
I'm not great, actually. My husband just died. Or, thanks for asking, but things are really bad. But it's like, how are you today? Like, can you hear me now? Like that Verizon. Yes. I love commercials. The Verizon commercial. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
And then I also think, that for me, talking about Rusty gave me the most comfort. And along the way, that, conversation or stories, they're still told, but they're less and less. And asking the question, tell me about your person. Tell me about what you guys did for Christmas. Tell me about how he celebrated your birthday. Like that is what, for me, and I imagine for others, is what makes you smile.
Mm. Whereas I would imagine that these people would think that doing that would bring up more pain, and dredge up,
Right. It's counterintuitive.
Yeah, it is a little counterintuitive, unless you've been in your shoes. So what, other than like everything you described, were there tangible resources that were like, really moved the needle for your progress and your kids' progress?
Yes, actually, I really dug deep into Instagram and Facebook, which is just this beautiful wealth of information. There are, for me, it was widows groups, grief groups that I found and started following. And then from there, sort of like a bystander at first, sort of like watching from the periphery, like, what is this all about? And then got myself involved with workshops that were given. And this was all through social media.
Right. It's like the good side. You only hear about the bad side of social media these days, but those connections are the good side of it.
That's right. So automatically I was given this group of people who were in my same shoes. And I therefore then had this better understanding of like all the feelings that I felt, which were so confusing because I had never been, I'm lucky. I was 40 years old and this was really my first like
rodeo.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Huge loss.
Huge loss in my life. And
or that. Yeah.
And so I was able to find people who were in a similar situation and learn from their process and their stories and their feelings. I also listened to a ton of podcasts. I would walk. I know. Look at these podcasts. Like there's a million different widows or widowers or dating after death, like all these different podcasts.
Because it's quite an alliteration there, Candace.
Right, I know.
Dating after death.
It's a title. We'll take it.
It's
catchy. It's catchy. Yeah. It's very catchy.
And then eventually, like I went on my own workshops, like in person. I went out to Colorado and did a widows like grief group out in Colorado for 4 days with other widows and went in person. And that was transformative.
Yeah. I remember that. You came back from that and that felt like a turning point for you. Like you started to see like the light.
I did.
You were like, okay, I see how like the next half of my life is possible and is gonna maybe shake out.
Right. And then beyond that, I really then took it. I've done all sorts of healing. I've done acupuncture. I've done tarot card readings. I've done breath work. I've done EMDR therapy. I have done mindset coaching.
Were they all equally impactful, or were there some that were more shining stars than others?
For me, some were more shining stars. The breath work was an unbelievably difficult experience, but probably one that moved trauma out of my body faster than anything else.
I just took a deep breath. I feel like I want to go for some breath work.
No, it really, it was an incredible experience. And also EMDR therapy was really helpful for me, which I didn't do until, I don't know, it was probably 3.5 years after Rusty died.
Candace, it feels so wise to me that you knew that you had to take this journey through healing yourself. And I imagine that some other widows, correct me if I'm wrong, instead lean into healing perhaps their children, the children, other people impacted, instead of focusing on their self. And I'm wondering how you had that wisdom, how you knew that you needed to do that in order to be there for everybody else. Was it just
Good
kind of like
question.
survival?
I think so. Yeah, I actually felt my grief in my body, right?
Mhm.
So, and I have talked to Milano about this many times, but there was a restriction in my heart and in myself, and I could not move through it, and it's a really horrible feeling, right? To be just this harsh pain for years, despite all of the work that I was doing. And so I think I just took it upon myself, as difficult as each process was. And this EMDR therapy was incredibly difficult. I needed to do something to help myself. And I was doing so much, but it just wasn't the right thing. Right? To that point, 3.5 years later, I had done so much work and had come so far, but I still knew that I wasn't done healing. And quite honestly, I'm never done healing, right? This is a lifelong healing journey. But it does change over time. And so what I did for myself changed as I changed with the grief. Does that make sense?
Yeah, your body told you what you needed.
Yeah.
I kind of want to ask about dating after death, but I don't know if
Oh
that's
God.
okay.
Well,
No. Is that another show? That's
Okay.
part 2, people.
Okay.
Tune
That's
back
part
in.
2. All
Part
right.
2.
But I will say there is a podcast named Dating After Death. And I was not even dating, but I was listening to this because I felt like people will give your opinion on dating after death and when you should be doing it and how you should be doing it and what you should be saying in your texts and da-da-da-da-da. And it was throw all of that out the window. These are real people who have gone through this and they're still standing and writing their own story.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really valuable for me to hear that. It gave me permission to even think about dating.
Mm-hmm.
And after Rusty died, I was well, I'm done. I'm never dating again. I had zero, it was not even a thought. And then as time moved on, it was well, I'm really young. And I have a whole second chapter, third, fourth, whatever.
I have a friend who's also a widow, and she said something. It made me laugh. She was talking about the same topic, and she was like, I held back and I just wasn't into it. And then I had this moment when I realized that my husband would already be remarried by now, and she laughed. She was like, they totally loved each other. She was like, he totally would have been remarried, new kids by now. So,
all right, we're good then.
Yeah, she's like, so maybe I'll go on a date. Anyway, it made me laugh.
That
is so true.
It does. Yeah. So
I have 2 more questions.
Sure.
One is I don't know, one is kind of silly, but maybe, and one is kind of bigger. Okay. So I remember vividly when Rusty died, and I remember feeling so guilty every time I was annoyed with my own husband or complain, in my mind, I would complain about him, or not in my mind, just out loud. And I remember feeling oh my God, hello, this is nothing, I can't be complaining about this person because this person is still here. I still have a husband. And I'm just curious. I mean, it's just if you, when Rusty died, or maybe sometime in between,
mm-hmm.
Remember like, oh my God, I can't believe like I was mad at him for this or I'm mad at him for that. Like, and the perspective that you got, like when actually the unimaginable happened and you
Mhm.
had to imagine it because it
Mhm.
was real.
Yeah.
Like what those feelings were of like, that was so stupid, or no, I really was pissed at him. Like,
No, I think I I feel like at somewhere in my life I've heard, you miss the smallest things when people die, and I didn't understand that until Rusty did die. And like one of the things that he used to do that would drive me crazy, and it was so silly, was like he'd leave his socks like crumpled up by the couch where we would watch TV at night, and just leave them. And I'm like, well, who's supposed to
yeah,
pick this up? Like, pick
yeah.
up your own dirty socks. Like, and it was one of the things that I missed the most
Mm.
after he died, because that was just like part of our dance, right?
Mhm.
And he would just little things,
Yeah.
he would come in after work and like jiggle his keys so that the kids knew he was coming home, and they would go nuts, and had just set them down for dinner or whatever it was.
You're like,
And I'd be like, oh my God,
yeah.
seriously? But that sort of thing, like, yes, it changed. All those things that bothered me were so menial, right? They were like now these endearing little pieces of him,
Mm.
that I think back to now and laugh about her. And but my perspective did change greatly.
Okay, last question. Speaking of perspective changing, this is a parenting show about parenting.
Yes.
Sometimes it is. And you are someone who I've known since we were both 16 years old. And there's never been like a doubt in anyone who's in the minds of anyone who's known you for that long or not that long, that you were going to be a mother and that you were going to be a fantastic mother. Like that you were like born to be a mother. And
What a beautiful, that's a nice compliment.
Well, thank you.
It is a nice, yes, you're welcome.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, this show, we talk a lot about how we come into parenting and how we arrive at the door of parenting, and then how how it's going, and who we are now,
like the baggage we brought.
So you're asking how the journey's been?
Yes, here I am, parenthood. I'm ready.
Oh, wow.
And then cut to whenever
crash and burn.
it's like your hair is on fire, and you're like. But we all bring information that we have leading up to day one of motherhood, and then it's modeling culture from your own childhood, your own background, or trauma can be a part of that. I obviously had a very different kind of trauma than you had at a very different age. But we talk about on this show and just with you and in life, I talk a lot about how that. Like I totally didn't, I did not physically bring that to the door of parenting, right? Like that just showed up on its own without any, what do they call that when guests show up? Like unexpected.
Uninvited.
It was an unexpected, uninvited guest that showed up in my parenthood. And I was like, what are you and who are you? So like my idea of who I was going to be as a parent obviously did not shake out in actual parenting. And this trauma, reared its ugly head in so many ways that blah, 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 blah. How did you show up to parenting, and how has this trauma changed that?
That's a good
question.
And
it can be very specific. It doesn't have to be this like lofty thing, but like, I'm curious.
I mean, listen, like before we have kids, we think we're going to do it all right. Right? We will give, you look at a kid throwing stuff at a restaurant and you're like, oh my God, my kid would never do that. The reality is that parenting is it's unfair, it's messy, it's hard. And we're all doing the best we can with whatever we've been dealt.
I remember you showing up at my house like a year after Rusty died with your kids. And you were always someone who was like early, like not just like punctual, but like for you being punctual was like 15 minutes early. And you were like an hour late. And you were like, and you walked in and you were like, hey, oh, by the way, I'm a late person now. I'm a late person. Like, yeah, that Candace is
so
gone.
true.
She left.
She left the building.
She left, stage left. She's out. No more. Yep. We said goodbye to her. Now this Candace is late. She's a late Candace all the time.
Yeah.
And you were like, so like accepting of your new late self. And I thought it was like so refreshing. And I guess I'm wondering like along those lines, you know, like, oh, well, you know, before Rusty died, I was, you know, X parent. After Rusty died, I'm this parent, you know? Because similarly, it's like you just have so much perspective about what really matters and giving yourself grace and, you know.
Yeah, I think before Rusty died, I was like on it. I was on everything, every little thing. I was punctual. I had the right meals. The teeth were being brushed. The TV was off when it needed to be. And then it was like, well, no, okay, now I'm a solo parent. I've lost my husband. My kids are, you know, dealing with, you know, the loss of their own father. And those little things that I was micromanaging, it was not a big deal anymore. Like I became less rigid in my approach to my expectations of myself as a parent. I just learned to like let things slide. And you just have to ride the wave. And I think that's what I've adjusted in that way because I've had to.
Mm-hmm. Want to do some lightning round?
Yeah, let's do a quick lightning round.
Oh, geez. Oh, man. I didn't know we do this. Okay.
Oh, we do. We do this.
You start us off, Milano.
All right. When the kids are all asleep, you fill in the blank.
Read a book.
Okay.
I know. I just like live for that time by myself, just quiet.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
And what are your two least favorite things about being a parent?
Making dinner. 100%. Making dinner is one of them. And feeling out of control a lot of the time.
Those were really good answers.
Thank you, friend. It's so nice to be able to share this with you and to have you on telling your amazing story. It's just like many levels of cup filling and gratitude. So thank you.
I agree. I learned so much from you, Candace. Thank you for this time.
Thank you, guys.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm so familiar and steeped in her story. I don't have fresh eyes at all. So I'm curious to know how you came out of it.
Yeah.
And the conversation.
To me, you know people in your life who unfortunately face this kind of tragedy, but I haven't had someone in my life who I've felt comfortable saying, okay, so talk us through that very next morning.
Right.
And that is, it was so illuminating and helpful just to have her be so vulnerable about the moments of the everyday and what they're like. Because you don't hear that when you're just saying to someone, I'm so sorry for your loss. And they say, thank you. The fact that she was willing to go there, it really taught me a lot.
And like when one part of you is so shattered, literally in like a million pieces, but this other part of you like has to keep trucking.
Right.
And
how do you do that?
Literally, like what are the mechanics of survival?
Is what she tells us.
Because you have to.
Yeah.
And maybe it's even distracting. But geez, I just think when I think about her, I don't know if this is like appropriate, but I think about, and especially like closer to when it actually happened, I just remember being like, like the garbage, taking out the garbage, like making sure the kids' teeth are brushed, making sure they are
Have
signed up
something
for
to
things,
eat.
having something like the grocery shopping, every single thing that goes into like making a home and making sure the home runs is like all on her. Like
Yeah.
there's just no one, hey, can you grab the, it's just like she's talking to herself.
Right.
It's
And
that really broke
meantime
my
trying
heart.
to heal herself.
And heal herself, right? Right. In what order, right?
Yeah.
But I do really appreciate, and I think that she's so committed to this of like, something we talk a lot about on the show is like sort of lifting the veil and
Yeah.
saying like, this is what it looks like. This is what you should do. Like when you know someone who's going through this, I will tell you what helps, what doesn't,
Yeah.
what to do, what not to do, what to say, what not to say. And I just think that's such a gift that she's giving.
I totally
like,
agree.
everybody,
Yeah.
people
News you can use, people.
News
So we
you
call
can
it in the
use.
news
Hey,
biz.
maybe we should rebrand. News you can use. Anyways, so
I have a question for
yeah.
you. As one of her dearest friends, what changes have you seen in her? Like, is she a different person now, or is she just essentially just herself?
I mean, she is Candace. She's the person
You know and love.
know and love.
Yeah.
Yeah. But of course, this
Yeah.
shapes you. Of course, this informs, how you walk through life in
Yeah.
the world. She is. I think of her as always being like really. She had amazing social and emotional intelligence. Like she is like very tactful, like which is like the opposite of me. She was always, she always like, she has an incredible filter, not that she was like a dishonest person at all, but like she just knew what to say and when to say it and knew what not to say and when not to say it.
I can kind of relate to that.
You are very similar.
It's my vibe.
That's your vibe. And now it's not that she's like rude or like lacking in tact, but she really doesn't.
She just says it.
She just says it. She's like, I don't have time.
Yeah.
Like I think it's given
And
her,
none of us do.
None of us has the time. Like I don't have time or space or brain space or bandwidth for any monkeying around. You know what I mean? Like, let's just call this what it is and move on. Like, I think it's given her a real like crystal clarity on her boundaries, on the limitations of like her resources, of patience and time and life, like literally like she was given the very harsh wake up call that life is not like a right. Apparently we all don't have the right to live.
Yeah.
Like it can literally be like snatched from you at any given moment. And so like make every single minute count.
Yeah.
Of course there's that, but also just like I'm like literally Atlas, like carrying the world on me. So like say what you have to say in like 3 minutes. You're like, I don't have time to like beat around the bush.
Yeah.
Or deal with any bullshit.
We can cut this out if it's weird, but
yeah.
You went through some terrible shit while, with your mom while she was your friend. I guess just in general, what do you remember about how your friends showed up? Or maybe you didn't want them to, maybe you weren't in that place where you, like when your mom was going through her kind of darkest times or when she died.
I think the way that they showed up for me was, that they just accepted that this was like a variable, that Milano's crazy mom was a variable.
Yeah.
And that she could show up and, they didn't like judge me for it.
Yeah. Right.
And
that was the best gift they could give.
Yeah,
they could just
so. They just were like, hey, do you want some pizza?
They kept things normal.
Yes.
Yeah.
They definitely kept things normal, which is a huge, huge thing to do.
As opposed to being like, geez, what's up with your mom?
Yeah. Well, sure. Yeah. I guess some people might have said that. They did not say it to me because they weren't my friends.
Screw those other people.
Screw those other people. No. Yeah. So, thank you for letting me have her on the show and tell her story, and for her to tell her own story.
Thank you for asking her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Can. And thank you guys, everyone out there listening and watching to Bare Naked Moms. We love you. We appreciate you. And we'll see you next week.
Be well.